بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. حضورنا الكرام، ها نحن قد وصلنا إلى آخر فقرة من فقرات هذا المؤتمر، وهي جلسة الختام، نستعرض فيها مناقشات مفتوحة حول أبرز ما جاء في هذا المؤتمر من موضوعات وأفكار تشكل في مجموعها توصيات للاستدامة ولتوفير فرص العمل، والتي انطلق منها مؤتمر وموضوعه. اسمحوا لي أن أقدم لكم كل من الدكتور سفيان صحراوي، مستشار التدريب في معهد البحرين للإدارة العامة، مديرا للجلسة. بروفيسور سلطان عرابي، General Secretary, the Association of Arab Universities. Mr. Peter Chang, Principal Consultant, AWTC Consultancies Limited, Hong Kong. Dr. Tess Goodlife, OAAA, Oman. Professor Clef Dimok, Professor of Leadership and Professional Learning, University of Glasgow, UK. Mr. David Collins, CEO, Champel House Training and Consultancy Limited, UK. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much first for sticking around this late in the conference. Usually we don't get as many numbers in conference like this, and this goes to the credit to the QA for organizing such a successful conference. The format is going to be as follows. I will basically give a question to each of the panelists and then get an answer from them, each separately, and then we'll open the floor for the audience. Let me make a very brief introduction. Now, over the last 2 days, that is yesterday and today, we've really heard great stuff. I mean, I think it's been extremely instructive in terms of qualification frameworks, in terms of VET, quality assurance, and you name it, okay? Now, the best way to conclude this is, and that's probably me also, is to have some critical perspective, right? That's really, and I would say, a philosophical view. I don't think that the speakers, although I mean they're all experts, they can add much more technical input to you. I think this is the time where we have to reflect upon certain basic questions, step back and say, okay, now having said all of that, having learned all of that, everything is convenient, convincing, nice and dandy, whatever. Now I will start. And therefore the questions tend to be a little bit critical. So I will start with Peter Chang, I think, because he was the first to go. And I think I leaked the question to him, by the way. It's only him and Tess know their questions because, you know, they accepted to have lunch with me. Okay? So, Peter, we talked about qualification framework. I mean, it was extremely instructive and why they're good. And I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I think you made the argument beautifully. Now, and of course, this question also applies across. So qualification frameworks, they tend to quantify market requirements. That's what they're meant to do, and induce higher education delivery to meet those requirements. Isn't there a risk in doing so of stifling innovation, maybe new modes of working, and eventually even alternative societies? I mean, if we can talk about something like that. If we just stick to current models and try to to basically force everything within those qualification frameworks.
I not expected a big question like this, but you know, it's worth reflection. I think all of us. Well, first, you know, we should not be imposing a qualifications framework as such. In fact, it should have started, you know, from demand. But, you know, I think the well over qualifications framework has become such a trend in fashion. So many of us, you know, just jump onto it, you know, thinking that we should have a qualifications framework. In fact, the proper way to have it is that stakeholders come forth with their claims. And then you put all these claims together, you are integrating interests. And then with all these interests in mind, the government, the Quality Assurance Agency takes the lead. And then, step by step, you introduce your qualifications framework. Because for a qualifications framework to succeed, you must have the commitment and support of all stakeholders, in particular the users, employers, industries, workers, worker unions, government, your other ministries. They must be committed to it. And they must understand that qualifications framework is more for the future than for the present. And it is a tool of social re-engineering. In fact, it is a big, big undertaking. And the danger of it is not that it will fail. It is that it will get irrelevant. If you have a very nice qualifications framework, everybody talk about it and do not use it, then you're not there yet. When in Hong Kong we introduced the qualifications framework, we are often faced with one criticism. The criticism that you have provided a lovely solution, but I don't know, what problem we are going to solve. So that is the reflection we should always bear in mind. I bet that very soon, there will be qualifications frameworks, in the Gulf states, and one future day you will have your Gulf, qualifications framework. But as we move along, the important that we keep our stakeholders on side, engaged and committed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your succinct answer. Just very brief comment is that it is true that it's not forced, as you say, but it has some power by merely being there. And if you're not part of it, you're not legitimate. So the matter of choice is that. I'll go to David. And David talked about VET, right? And of course, nobody contests the importance and opportunities that are offered by VET. But is it an alternative really to education? And aren't we really dumbing down people by pushing it as an alternative to education? At least the way you argue about it, it can work for somebody like as brilliant as you are, but if we did it and we institutionalize it to, it could become risky for our society, isn't it?
I have to tell you, we do not know what these questions are before they're being asked. I asked him if he could ask me one on sport, but he refused. That is a really big question, and all I can say is that no, I don't think it is dumbing it down. I don't think it is a substitute for academic rigor in learning. Learning and development and change requires, as far as I'm concerned, academic underpinning, good schooling, great teachers and lecturers, frameworks in which people can operate to allow people to be creative and to be expansive in their thinking so we can get new theories and new philosophies in the future. And I think if we can just blend the vocational perspective with the academic side, I think you get something really beautiful. And the question that has just been asked and so well answered, for me, it's about you're providing a foundation for a building. And the foundations have got to be secure, they've got to comply with all the regulations in terms of safety, and it's got to support whatever is going to be built. Without good foundations, whatever you build is going to fall at the first earthquake or the first tsunami or whatever that's going to come along, because the world will bring the earthquake or the tsunami. You've got to understand that actually that's going to be inevitable. But the creativity is what goes on those foundations. And I just think it excites people. I have to say, having been through my educational system, I've been majorly bored in many lectures, but I have to say I've never been bored in a vocational course, in a vocational environment. And for me, if you could just blend the two, you get such energy and such passion, and you could do special things. And I think it would just encourage people to be enthused about it, and through enthusiasm you're going to get creativity, and through creativity you're going to get new energy and new thinking and a bright future. So I don't know whether I've answered the question. I'm with some very bright people here, and I feel a little bit sort of like, oh, who am I to be sat up here saying these things? It's just that I've experienced the good and the bad and the ugly of education. And for me, blending it responds to the need of the individual, but it also enables that diversity to come through of different cultures, races, religions. It just allows people to express themselves in their own framework, in their own world, for the benefit of society and the organizations they're going to work with. And through that diversity, I think there's great strength. I don't know whether that's answered your very big question.
Thank you, David. I think, as you just said it, the issue is, or the solution is, to find the right balance and not to push one at the expense of the other. And I think that's what really needs to be settled as a foundation. And actually, I'll go to Sultan Abu Arabi, Dr. Sultan Abu Arabi, because it's connected to your question. I can ask it in Arabic or I'll ask in English, and then if needs be, I can ask it in Arabic. Now, there was a statement you made this morning that intrigued me a little bit. You said that 80% of students in the Arab region, I think, are in the social sciences and the humanities. And you said it like it was a bad thing. I mean, and I'm saying, I mean, what's wrong with that? Aren't we trying to develop better citizens through such fields? And can't we complement that, you know, the social science and humanities training with field-specific training, which, in my opinion, here I'm biased, and being from the social science and humanities myself, we might not really build the citizen that we want. So you have anything against the social science and humanities?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before I answer your question, but I'm looking really at the audience here, and I am really delighted and nice to see how many people still in this room here. And really this appreciation goes to Dr. Jawahar and her team for the nice work and for doing excellent work, Dr. Jawahar and Tariq, for preparing for excellent conference. I will get to your question now. Yes, indeed, I mentioned yesterday in my presentation that one of the setbacks for our higher education system in the Arab countries, that we have 80% of our students, they are studying humanities and social sciences, and less than 20% they are studying natural sciences, engineering and medicine and pharmacy and things like this. I am not against humanities or social sciences. I am a chemist, yes, I am a natural scientist, but I would like to see humanities and social sciences. Yes, we need them. We need those experts in those fields. But we need natural scientists, we need doctors, we need engineering, because this is how you make the progress in any country. If you go to the West, or even Southeast Asia nowadays, look at the Samsung company, how much they are producing to the market of Korea. They need engineering, they need technicians, and this is very important. Let us make it 50-50. This will be even. But if it will be, you have 80%, can we accommodate those graduates in the Arab market? Most of the Arab universities, they have Department of Political Sciences, for example. Do we have job for those people? That's the question. Yes, we need historians, but do we need thousands of people to study history and geography? But we need people like in business, we need people in languages, we need people like chemistry, physics, mathematics, engineering, things like this. And I think civilization, if you go back to the 7th and in the 8th century, when higher education started in this region, before Europe, Bologna University started in 1088. But 300 before that time, الزيتونة University established in Tunisia, القرويين in Morocco, الأزهر الشريف, المصنصرية in Iraq, الكوفة. At that time they were majoring mostly in natural science. And that's exactly what do we need here.
Thank you, Dr. Sultan. I will take the 50-50 so that we don't quarrel. 50 will do. I will go to Clive. And here I have a personal interest because I myself work on this bridging the disconnect, like they say, but in public administration, between the research and the practice. Now you talked about this disconnect between the research policy and practice. And it is also very much due to the lack of absorption capacity, basically at the level of the practice. And my question to you, which is the absorption capacity of users of the output of research or education, how, more so than from the supply side. So how do we build such capacity? Yes, at the user level. I mean, that's the real challenge. You know.
Right, thank you for the question. Let me play for time while I think about it and congratulate all of the individuals here involved in organising this wonderful conference. I go to many conferences, as probably most of you do, around the world, and this has been one of the best organised conferences I've really been to. Does your applause mean that I can avoid answering the question? Oh dear. Okay. I love the question. I think it is goes to the heart, really, of what we're all about. Everyone in this room is really aiming at the same target, which is how can we improve the teaching and learning in our classrooms. It's as simple and as complex as that. Whatever our roles, we're really here to improve, to play a contribution to improving teaching and learning in our classrooms for the benefit of our students. So the implications of the question that's been given me are absolutely profound. And what I'm going to say is probably going to surprise you, because I don't care whether you come from a system that is very bureaucratic, top-down, or whether you come from a very open governed system which allows a lot of freedom at the school level. I don't really care, because I believe in the importance of leadership at all levels of a system. So, particularly at the user level, the school level, the principal and the senior management team can nurture, must prepare, must train. They have an obligation. You cannot be a leader, good school leader, if you are not spending a lot of time nurturing, training and preparing your younger, less experienced colleagues in the school for leadership roles. And you can begin to see, I hope, the direction in which my answer is going. We must focus on not leadership. People are wrong when they say we need more leadership, more leaders. We don't. We've got enough mediocre and poor leaders as it is. What we need is more outstanding, high-performing leaders. And we all know leadership is difficult to practice. So we need good training of leaders in the school, outside the school, in the training colleges, and across the system, as I was saying in my presentation. We need to be much smarter at using outstanding principals to feed across the system to train less good principals, peer to peer. So, once you get a good leadership structure of training in place and application in our schools, this is where I describe the rubber hits the road. It's not in the ministry, it's not even in the QAA, with respect. The rubber hits the road in the classroom, in the school. And that's where teaching quality, leadership quality of the principal particularly, but not just the principal, can start to make things happen. That's why I say I don't care whether it's highly centrally controlled system, a big bureaucracy or not, doesn't matter. Principals and their colleagues in school can do a lot. They win the trust of the government. If they're going to be proactive, strong leaders in their schools, they may need to win the trust and respect of quality advisors, of ministry, and so on. But what they can achieve is immense if they really are proactive leaders. And it comes, don't want to go on too long because I get on my soapbox, but once you get good leadership in place, teachers will engage, teachers will commit, teachers will be passionate and motivated about their work, and then things start to really happen. And ostensibly it means, in my opinion, utilising professional development through vehicles like professional learning communities, where teachers and leaders in the school work together to professionalise each other, to use research, develop their own research skills, and that's the way we develop user capacity.
Thank you very much, Clive. I could not agree more. Leadership is an enabler of capacity development. And I will conclude the last question that I addressed to Tess is the most telling question of all. She's made a presentation about the sustainability of QA processes. And I think it applies to most QA agencies, at least in the region, and even beyond. The operation of QAAs or QQAs has really become sustainable. And I think Tess made a very good illustration of that in her presentation today about Oman. Now, the bigger question is, how about the sustainability and durability of the outcomes rather than the process? That's, I think, probably the bigger challenge. And QA being an evidence-based process, how can you prove to us that?
Okay. I'm not stalling, but I would just like to go back to the humanities and social science, just very quickly. But a 2007 study that was done in Oman found that 57% of programs being offered were in 3 fields of study: business, computing, and engineering. And the problem is, I think it's a slightly, and I'm not being disrespectful to my colleagues, it's a slightly misleading argument to say that it's natural sciences or it's humanities or social sciences. It's about, are we offering the right range of programs per se that is needed in the context? And it's not about whether it's the sciences. I mean, we all know, if you go to the UK, that it's now joint collaboration. It's no longer single discipline degrees, but it's about, are we offering the right type of educational opportunities to meet the knowledge economy and the demands of countries in 20 to 30 years. So that was a very useful debate, so thank you for
Have you thought about the answer for the next question?
Okay, sorry. Having stalled successfully, and you raise a really good point, and those that saw the presentation would know that we have this 2-stage process, and the second stage process is standards assessment. And standards assessment, which is the approach we're going to be using for institutional and program accreditation, is outcomes-based. So by using a quality audit, which was much more formative and looking at the processes, but when we get to standards assessment, we have standards that say it's not that you have these processes in place, but you show that these processes work. And the evidence that institutions need to show that the processes are in place, it's all about institutional effectiveness and the sort of data, the trend data that you need to collect as an institution to demonstrate progress, to demonstrate that you are meeting targets, that you are meeting your KPIs. How do you know? And show us how you know. So, for example, one of our standards is student entry standards, which is, I know, is a hot topic. And the student entry standards criterion says, how do you know, or the institution is expected to have the appropriate student entry standards for a student to be able to fulfill their academic career successfully. How do you know that your student entry standards are correct? How do you know they're appropriate? And I think that's quite a tall order for institutions to have to answer, but that's what we're asking. It's not enough to say it's set as an equivalent to IELTS 5.5. How do you know that your students get through? How do you monitor progress? How do you monitor those that just pass foundation? How have they done in their higher education program? How do you know that you're setting the bar at the right level? So what we're proposing is that an outcomes-based, standards-based assessment process is one approach to look at the outcomes of those processes rather than just the processes themselves. I hope that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it's again, it's a very convincing answer, but of course I could take it to the next stage. When I look, for example, at the ranking that I mentioned, which talks about the ultimate aim of education at the level of a country, that's also another level you have to think of. When you talk about employability, is it really solving the employability problem in the country? If we want, or upgrading the skills, etc. I would not, of course, I would like to open the floor now to the audience for another set of questions. And of course, feel free to address any of the speakers or a general question, please. Anybody? Okay, I see a person. Yeah, gentleman over there, and all the way to the left. Anybody else? Eh. Okay. Don't shout at me. I didn't do anything to you. No, there is a mic coming your way. Shouting will not do. Where is the mic? It's coming here. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ahmed from TUV Nord. My question is to Mr. David. You spoke about TNA versus cultural analysis. And when we speak about cultural analysis, we are speaking about individuals' attitudes. Okay, and again, when we speak about individual attitudes, it's about principles. They develop their principles or like from their family, school, and this is how they had that attitude. How could we analyze the culture of that company? This is my question. Thank you.
Great question. No easy answer. If I approach this using the framework of neurology, the neurological levels of thinking, of conversation, split down into 5 levels. The first one is environment, easy. Behavior, easy. Skills, knowledge, qualifications, easy. When you get below level number 3, you get into values and beliefs, and a little lower below that, you get into identity. Training needs analysis often occur at levels 1, 2, and 3. We can all go into an organization and see the arrangements of the furniture, the departmental structures. We can go into an organization and see how people work and see what they do or what they don't do. We can do an assessment of whether they have qualifications in the area, in the profession that they're serving in. What's really difficult is to get under the skin in terms of what they think, what they believe, and what their personal values are. However, in an environment of trust and with the right approach, a consultant can ask a question in an environment of rapport, trust and confidence. And the right consultant asking the right questions in an environment of trust and confidence will reveal the values and beliefs of that individual. If you go deeper, you find out whether or not their identity is actually something they would wish to talk about, either their professional identity or their social identity. These are valid questions for any consultant, any manager, any leader to ask in any organizations, because it's the values and beliefs and the identity elements which will impact on the culture, in my opinion. Once you've got that information, it's not about being judgmental about it or making some judgment of you believe the wrong things or you value the wrong things. Many people's values and beliefs are sound. They're just working in the wrong organization because the values of the organization are something different. And many of the people that I coach through executive coaching who are very senior are profoundly unhappy and mismatched. And when you explore some of the reasons why they are there and so disillusioned, it's because they're in the wrong job. And a lot of this is about finding, don't find you're in the wrong job when you're 40 or 50 years old because you've had a rough time. The message I send out to anybody embarking upon any profession is to really understand who you are at a values and beliefs. And then find an organization that you can align to and contribute to, rather than having to fight your way every day, every hour of every day, against a culture that doesn't feel right for you. And if you can't find one, create your own business. Create your own business, because actually, who's to say that the values and beliefs that you have in your heart isn't out there in terms of a potential customer? Because that's where you sell your business. That's where you engage with a customer at a values and beliefs. You will buy everything from a car to a cup of coffee. Not on the fact that it's just there, not on the fact that it's convenient to get to, not on the fact that you've got the qualification to go, or the skill to go and buy it. You go there because you want to go there. You believe in that organization, that product. And the sooner you realize that the alignment of cultural values and beliefs is so imperative in terms of the business bottom line, the better. One, for a productive organization. Two, for a happy and contented and fulfilled life. I hope that's answered your question.
Thank you, David. Is there another question to the panel? Yes, Dr. Saad.
Yes, thank you. Thank you
Somebody
very
else
much.
was raising his or her hand over there? Yes.
Saad Darush, Applied Science University. The question is addressed to Professor Dimmock. If I still remember, you mentioned something about teachers doing research in the school. I was thinking of how would we be able to do it? What is the process? What should we think of to make it in action? Because, as you probably know, research in the Arab world is in the level down of the rank. So many research statistics shows the Arab universities or research in general is not in the right area, or in the money spent on research is not that much if we compare ourselves with other nations. So how would you tell us, how would we be able to do it? Could you comment on that, please? Thank you.
Question. It starts in teacher training. It starts with making sure that as a professional teacher, that as they come through initial teacher training, we're equipping them with the skills they need to start teaching. I think we all accept these days that initial teacher training isn't going to be sufficient for a career, a lifelong career of teaching. So what skills do they need to get started? And I think I referred, if you remember yesterday, to the notion, would you go and see a doctor if they'd finished their training when they newly qualified? Would you go and see a lawyer, and so on? So would you go to a teacher who wasn't capable of understanding research evidence or even undertaking a bit of research as part of their professional practice? So you're right, you can't expect teachers to undertake research unless we equip them in teacher training, right from word go, initial teacher training, and then build on that through continuous professional development in service once they're qualified. But then I'd go on to say, let's not over-dramatise what we mean by research. Too often, I think, we think of research as something done by Harvard professors in the lab, and actually that's part of the problem, because I'd like to see the Harvard professors doing their research in your schools. But that's one notion of academic high-flying research. But research can be as simple in an action learning sort of way as 2 or 3 teachers in a school getting together, maybe in the same department, or 2 or 3 teachers trying to put on an interdisciplinary topic, bringing social sciences and natural sciences together, because that is one of the future directions we need to go for the knowledge-based economy. Don't forget, curriculum is an artificial categorization that we educators make. It helps us expedite knowledge. So we need to, anyway, 2 or 3 teachers getting together and working together, looking at evidence, using their own tacit knowledge of experience, sharing their experience. That's part of the research process. Research doesn't have to be Nobel Prize winning, Harvard-type activity. We mustn't glamorize research to think of it just in that way. And in a professional, applied sense, this is the type of research we need more of in our schools. Teachers being skilled up, working with universities, working with consultants who are research experts to build research capacity in our schools. And I would argue, and I go to the stake on this, that that is part of being a professional teacher.
Thank you, Clive. Maybe to connect it to because Dr. Said is from a university, so maybe something like the scholarship of teaching and learning that has developed in university would be connected to something like that. Because people, it's not as much teacher training, which is for basic education. But yeah, the argument holds that we have to research our working environment and report on it. Thank you, David. I will take a question from here. Yes, please. Sorry, excuse me, sir, because I have already pointed. Dr. Ahlam, and then I will take the gentleman. Sorry about that. Huh?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Ahlam Hassan from Ahli University. First of all, I would like to thank the QQA and all the keynote speakers for an impressive and informative conference. As a briefing, just like what I briefed from this conference, many challenges were discussed at different levels. For example, the student achievements, ILOs, assessments, staff developments, culture change, quality management system, vocational. Really, they are very important topics at all. But if we want to talk about some solutions, how to solve these problems in line with what Professor Cliff mentioned, I agree with him totally. High performance leaders are needed at different levels within higher education institutions, entities, labor market. Higher education institutions cannot work alone. We now have the umbrella of quality assurance. We're really following very impressive standards, and we have to be fair. Where we were before 7-8 years and where we are now really will have to be an impressive results in terms of performance for institutions. So, what is the role of leaders at different levels? Inspiration, motivation, voluntary commitment, all of these are factors that we need to look at as we are responsible from our place. We are teaching students how to be leaders. First of all, we have to go and introspect them ourselves. Are we capable? How we can improve in terms of staff development? Because really we cannot have a magic stick and solve all of these challenges. First of all, as our leaders, we have to have a proper planning mechanism. We have to spend more time in planning.
Dr. Ahlem, this is the answer now. You
Yes.
stick to the question, they will answer.
My question to Dr. Professor Cliff, what the high performance training that you mentioned, how we can help institutions in a time mainly framework to involve the leaders within the institutions, as what do you suggest to train, how to train them?
Thank you, Dr. Ahlem. Before I yield the floor to Dr. Clive, I would like to take the gentleman's question and then we'll answer them together, because it'll be the last question and then we'll have just a quick answer here. The thing. Please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the wonderful panel discussion and fruitful thoughts. I would like to conclude by this question, and I would direct this question to Professor Demak. We're talking about system change, and system change is a lengthy process that will take time. However, when it comes to education, we do have several tensions areas that are there. For example, we keep asking for teachers to form a professional identity with an emphasis on action research or whatever notion of research that can be adapted. However, in the same time, they are being bombarded with all these different initiatives, improvements, and so ever from outside, and basically they are from all over the world, not the creation of the system itself. Another area of tension that we keep asking for the creation of the professional learning communities. However, our systems reward teachers individually if they have done well or if they have done bad. Another area of tension, it has to do with the policy making and creation. We keep asking for involvement. However, we say the time is too short, reforms are instant and it should happen now. So many areas of tensions. How do you think a given system can create the balance and come out with a solution? We basically most of the time rely on the legislations and the organizer or the overall umbrella. However, how can we overarch all the policies into
Thank you. Your question is very clear. Just there are two questions. The first one from Dr. Ahlem. Basically, we talked before as leadership, as an enabler of capacity building. Now she's saying, how do we build that leadership, as a matter of fact? And this second question is obviously all of the contradicting stimuli on the profession, and so how do we reconcile between them?
In some ways, the questions can be combined, I think, because they're both sort of dovetailing. And for me, it comes back to what is a healthy education system. A healthy education system is a dynamic system. It's a system which allows stakeholders, key stakeholders at different levels in the system, school level, even parents, users of schools, consumers of education, to have a say in what they want for their education system and its future direction. And so it means even if you've got a fairly top-down command and control system in place, if there is no bottom-up allowance, affordance of views and perspectives from practitioner groups, from parents and so forth, I would argue that really does signal the need for a more sensitive, a more balanced, and a healthier education system. Even a top-down system, and I've worked in them, can allow for and can be sensitive to the practitioner voice, the parent voice, and so forth, and the business voice, the vocational voice. Because all that rich balance holds the government and the MOE in check. It keeps them on target. They should be grateful for that sort of feedback because it would help them make better policies, etc. Within that whole realignment of relationships and influences, and I'm not talking about overthrowing traditional power structures, I'm talking about creating opportunities for different groups in society to have a say, an input into the policy-making process. But to come specifically to your very, very good question, it is about spotting. We don't change, Rome wasn't changed overnight, as they say, and we have to be patient, but what we have to be is optimistic. These are the three foundations of good leadership, which we don't talk about, but they're vital. You can't exercise outstanding leadership unless you have optimism. So don't come to me and say, oh, I don't think we can do this. That's the opposite of leadership. That's blowing leadership up. That's saying we can't do anything. It's hopeless. We're in despair. Don't bring that to me. I don't want to hear it. If you're a good leader, you're optimistic. The second thing you are, and this applies to leaders at all levels, right from top to bottom, as it were, confidence. We can do this. Third one, resilience. Because you can be optimistic, you can be confident, but you'll know that all the people around you are going to be tearing bites out of you. Saying, no, we can't, I'm not going to do this, I don't feel, right? Am I right? Resilience. Those are the three things we need. And so we need to spot talent in the system, wherever it exists. There's got to be some outstanding leaders, potentially, if not actually, in every system. Let's spot them. Let's give them the opportunity to influence other leaders. Let's give them the resources. Let's use them as pilot schools to show to the rest of the system what can be achieved. And then we build gradually around nuclei of good clusters of schools that are outstanding, that model, demonstrate to others. We bring other principals and school leaders in to see what's going on. And gradually you hope to get a critical mass. It's a long, slow process. You're absolutely right. But optimism, confidence, resilience.
Thank you, Clive, very much. As you said, optimism, confidence, and resilience, that's what we seem to be getting out of this great conference anyways. I will finish with a question for which I do not expect an answer. It's more rhetorical. I mean, how far can we push, excuse me, that's my personal bias, how far can we push the quantification and the measurement, before we realize or before we ensure that we are on the right path? And that's just a way of externally validating what we are all doing, and that's part of the QA process. Tarek gives me threatening signals from there to conclude, and I will obviously, would like Clive Dimme, Tess Goodliff, Dr. Sitar Carabi, Peter Chang, and David Collins. I thank you all for having stayed this late, and with this I conclude this great panel. I apologize to everybody if we do not have the time to tackle everything. Thank you very much.